play bum chums together? I'm here to tell you the awful fucking truth.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I love.
Thank you so much for your support.
January, February, into March and April. Same way too.
Thank you.
May, June or July.
Fucking hell! Horrid!
I never
Absolutely
let a day
horrid!
go by
I give you shower and you
for
snaky
you to
with me.
remember,
What the
just
fuck
in
did I do
case
to
you go
you?
away in August or September, in October and November, not to mention warm December. I love
Half a dozen pieces of fucking
so
shit!
another year has gone, I'm ready for the next one too.
If I can be with you.
Every single second, every minute, every hour, all the whole year through. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I love you.
I'm ArchieLuxury, tell me what you fuckers think of that!
Just want to, I am sure that Lord they're watching this program as well, because he cannot stop watching you, because it's basically very attractive to you sexually, even so that he is not into men's, but eventually he is.
Lord help me!
Yes, sir.
I spent too much money.
I respect you. I will remain.
Okay, I respect you too. I
No-
love
no
you.
hard
You can
feelings.
leave now because your time
That's
is
goodbye.
important.
I gotta be totally honest with you. I don't want to carry on this bullshit that everything is a struggle. I've got to be totally honest with you. I actually have a tax bill kind of due, and this money would be extremely helpful to meet some obligations that I've got.
In October and November, not to mention warm December, I love you. Though another year has gone, I'm ready for the next one too. Every single second, every minute, every hour, all the whole year too. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
Holy
Sunday.
fuck! What the fuck? I'm looking in the mirror!
I love you.
Hello, Archie, my old friend. I've come to steal the leads again. And while ER is sleeping, you will find me softly creeping. And the super chats that were planted on the street were all from me. From the dollars and pounds of shysters.
It's so you, Archie, it's so you.
Fucking hell!
All right, enough of these cheesy intros, guys. These annoy the fuck out of me as well when he runs these. So no more cheesy intros. Welcome to the show. We're doing a little bit of a pre-show here on the ArchieLuxury live stream. I am not ArchieLuxury. I'm your host, Tan. We're going to be talking some watches and saying hello to a couple of folks in the chat. No real topics, so if the punters want to ask questions or just chat, we can do that. Feller in the house, Tan the man. Hey, fella, how you doing? McKinley, Tanzeel, spells my name wrong, but hey, we'll let that one slide. Yankee Doodle, OG of the channel, how you doing? Trading Profits, good to see you. Yeah, no real big news going on in the watch world. You know, we can't really expect big news from the watch world every single day, but you know, last week was the AP week where we saw a bunch of AP releases. You know, whether it's kind of to you it's meh or it's otherwise, you know, it's to me it's there's always going to be a ton of Royal Oak releases as you expect from any AP release. CB, how you doing? Hopefully you're well. Hope everyone's good. Shout out to Harold Shipman. Saad, how you doing? I'll drop the link here. I think I gave the link on WhatsApp, but I'll I'll drop the link if you want to join here and chat with me. No real main topics to go through. Probably just ramble on a bit and just interact with the chat. But yeah, no, it was an eventful week last week. I think in terms of some watch releases and obviously Watches and Wonders is coming up, and everyone's speculating on Rolex and everything else. It's the same every year, right? Obviously, Rolex has two anniversaries coming up this year: the 70th anniversary of the Submariner, as well as the 60th anniversary of the Daytona. Now, I don't know, right? Like 70 and 60 aren't huge milestones, but we'll see. Maybe the Crown does something special. Maybe they just do something lazy. Who knows? You can never really predict the Crown. Hi, Tan, can we unban that? Unfortunately, I don't have channel keys to actually unban anybody, so that would have to go to ArchieLuxury. AOC, how's it going? Piaget Polo Perpetual. Piaget Polo Perpetual. Let's see. Is this a new release? 8 hours ago, yeah. It's a facelift meet the Polo. I actually got this off Forbes, which is interesting. Let's have a look. Share this tab. Ooh, this is not like my ad blocker, so let me just find another site to pull this up for SOC, and then a Block to Watch has it, so I'm sure a Block to Watch will be just fine. Let me get my screen sharing going. Since I'm solo today, I think Piaget unveils the Perpetual Calendar Polo. All right. This is for UOC, new Perpetual Polo Piaget thoughts. Look, I actually don't mind the Polo as a case design. It's kind of polarizing. There's a lot of folks that really hate the Polo, but to me, it's not something that bothers me. Dial layout's pretty clean here on the Polo. You got your days, you got your date, you got your months, as well as the number of years here to track the perpetual calendar. And nice green dial. Let's have a look. Little rotor over here, not too bad. Piaget is saying they're using an ultra thin movement for this, which Piaget is known for ultra thin, so I wouldn't necessarily put that to something that is out of the ordinary. But hey, you know what? This movement's actually not bad looking. It's like a little bit of a micro rotor here on the right. Manufacture Piaget, stainless steel, good metal, perpetual calendar. You know what? This is actually interesting, OC, because there's not a ton of perpetuals. We got somebody looking to join here. We got Mr. 100, JJ's Watch Hangout. How's it going? JJ, are you there? Maybe you're there. Hopefully you're there. JJ may be having, there he's gone. So maybe some audio issues. I think JJ will be back. Movement finishing is crap for the money. I actually don't know how expensive this is. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at how much. Ooh, 58,500. So this is what I was going to kind of get into, was like, when you're looking at perpetual calendars, right, and steel perpetual calendars, when you think perpetual calendar, you're thinking high horology, you're thinking Patek, you're thinking Vacheron and AP and these high-end brands. When you go into kind of other brands out there, the steel perpetual calendar that comes to mind is the JLC perpetual calendar. So I'll share the JLC perpetual calendar here. So retail price 34,000 Canadian dollars, so significantly cheaper than the Piaget Polo perpetual calendar. But it definitely could be a little pricey. Now, do I think anyone's ever going to pay that kind of money on the secondary market? Probably not. Oh, JJ seems to be back. JJ, can you hear me now? Maybe not. JJ's Watch Hangout. Not saying anything. And he's off again. Poor JJ is struggling with the interwebs out in Brooklyn. But yeah, look, I like watches. Movement finishing is crap for the money on that Polo. I don't think from a dollar's perspective, 50, you're getting a ton of value at $50,000, but I don't think anyone's going to spend $50,000. I'm just going to zoom in here on the movement, bit of perlage on the base plate. You got some blued screws. you've got. I haven't checked the metal on this rotor. I mean, it's not bad finishing. Not really much anglage here on the plates, but you know, it's what I would expect from, you know, like a JLC competitor in this sense. So yeah, no worries, JJ. All good. Maybe when you reach home, what have you. You know, that's cool. CB says, poor man's Nautilus Perpetual. Yeah, you know, it's interesting because when you look at these, you know, perpetual calendars is a complication that most folks or a lot of folks aspire, I think, to have in their collection. But, you know, obviously when you're looking at the high-end brands, it's astronomical in terms of the price. Whereas these JLC perpetuals, you know, like the one I showed here on the screen, even though these watches are, you know, retail for, you know, this is Canadian dollars, $34,000, right? On the secondary market, they're significantly cheaper. I think I might have seen some of these ultra thin perpetual calendars in steel for like 16, 17 US. So, you know, they definitely take a dump on the market, which I would assume also from the Piaget Polo perspective. It's a complicated Piaget Polo. I would assume that the target market's probably looking for just a simple Piaget Polo. And that's really kind of, I think, where some brands lose their way. You know, and if we think of Panerai, for example, they, you know, their brand was based on, you know, really simple dive watches, and then they start diving into and getting into complications and stuff, and it's like, well, people don't really buy your watches for complications. When it comes to Piaget, right, the Polo is you know, it's a famous watch that they have, but they're very well known for their ultra thin movements, and yeah, I mean, people will spend inordinate amounts of money on their very ultra thin pieces, but when you kind of mix a Polo customer with an ultra thin customer looking for a perpetual calendar, I don't know, would I spend 58,000 US on this watch or something else? Like, I'd probably be looking at something else. If I really wanted a steel perpetual calendar that was outside of the Trinity, you know, I'd be looking at JLC. It's a lot cheaper if you get it on the secondary market. So that's my simple take. I haven't spent that much time reviewing or reading through, you know, any news today. So this is something definitely that I hadn't seen. But look, you know, in terms of outside of whether it's good value for money, I like the dial layout. I don't really mind the K shape of the Polo. I think the dial layout's pretty clean when it comes to showing the perpetual calendar. So and yeah, look, you definitely see some aesthetic similarities to other watches, but yeah, I don't know if this is a great value proposition at $57,000. And really, if you're looking to get, you know, if these brands are really looking to make a statement, right, they might need to lower these prices when it comes to accessibility. Because think about it, if you have a really accessible perpetual calendar that is beautiful, like this one is from an aesthetic perspective, that's probably your recipe for success. When it's 60 grand at retail, which I highly doubt it's ever going to be anywhere near where it's going to be on the secondary, like, yeah, I don't know. Not really a home run for me, but got a super chat from Dodger. I should really learn the actual currency name for Poland, but Polish currency 20 from Dodger, just a small token for the content you provide. Thank you, Dodger. I thought about super chatting to keep that dungeon going and give you a bit of pain yesterday, another 30 minutes, but I was like, you know what? I think Dodger and Mrs. Dodger need rest. So Trading Profit says, I think they should limit production rather than lowering prices. Yeah, that could be an option, right? Like whether they choose to not pump and dump. It's really like, you know, part of it's demand, right? Is there demand for these pieces? And maybe not just the low end Polo, but a piece like this, you know, they really need to gauge how much demand is out there. Are people really lining up for Polos, and do people really want a complicated Polo? Now, do I think this watch is beautiful? Yeah, absolutely. Do I think the movement finishing is okay? Yeah, I think it's possible. I don't think it's worth the money that they're charging on the actual you know, retail market. But Chris says, I'm imagining most of the Richemont perpetual calendars are running a Kurt Klaus module, so modifications aside, you're comparing apples to apples. Logical for Richemont, the horizontal integrate. Yeah, that makes sense for a business, right, to do it. It's just whether, Chris, this is the right move, right? Like if you're Panerai and you've really lost your way, and you had a very strong, you know, very big stronghold on the market back in the day. We're talking years ago, right? You know, Panerai, if you're sitting there and say you work for Panerai today and you're trying to, sell more Panerais or really improve the brand. Is that really barking up the tree of, yeah, just because we can do it, just because we have, horizontal integration in terms of our ability to do complications, is that what a Panerai buyer really seeks? Are you seeking a Panerai with a perpetual calendar? I don't know, right? Like I personally wouldn't. I love just how basic the PAMs are. They're one and dones, and I think that's really kind of where their target market was at the time. And I think for them to really start surviving again, they got to go back to the roots. Saad says Piaget makes ugly watches. It was very famous back in the day. Yeah, it's subjective. I know a lot of people hate the Polo. I don't mind the Polo. I actually think this is a really good looking watch. I like the hue of the green here on the dial. It's pretty well thought out, I think, on the dial up piece of it. But yeah, look, different strokes for different folks here. There is some decent finishing on this movement, but again, as our friend Trading Profits and others pointed out, this price tag is quite high, 58,500. So yeah, tell me what you guys think. If you guys hate the Piaget Polo, if you love the Piaget Polo. Chris agrees with me with the integration piece. Thank you, Chris. And yeah, look, just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to. I think a lot of these brands have struggled over the years, and I think I talked about Vacheron, right? I was talking about Vacheron the other day, and how Vacheron and AP have both come out with new lineups, right? Like, we always kind of like, what's Rolex going to do next? And I don't think Rolex at this point in time need to release a new lineup. I don't think they need to do any of that, because within their current catalog, you probably need to do a bit of consolidation and or refreshing of the current catalog. But brands like AP and Vacheron that really struggled outside of the few models they do sell, for them it was important to actually come out with a fresh new lineup, whether that's the 1159 or the 1159 or the Vacheron 56, which I think are. I can appreciate what they're doing. I applaud them for obviously going down the route of trying to be a little different, trying not to be a one-trick pony and flooding us with Royal Oaks, which they continue to do. But I think it's good that they have taken that step, whether right or wrong, whether we love it or don't. I think it's still important that they did that. And between the two, the 1159 and the 56, I actually think aesthetically I like the 56 better. Don't like the fact that the 56, at least the base one, doesn't have the Geneva seal, but hey, I can live with that. Chris says the Piaget Polo, when it debuted in the 70s, looked very, very different to this Nautilus imitator. Yeah, and look, I think a lot of brands are kind of looking at the Gerald Genta design and seeing that it's hot. It's hot right now, or it was hot a year ago or 2 years ago. And everyone's kind of looking at making some kind of, like you said, an imitator. But that wasn't always how it was, and not everybody's loved these designs. And even today, there's people who hate the Royal Oak. They're like, yeah, it's not for me. I was like that actually prior to buying my first Royal Oak. Looking at pictures, I never liked the Royal Oak. I never liked the Reverso. Both those watches I thought just were not that great in pictures. It wasn't until I actually experienced them, putting them on the wrist and seeing how it fit my wrist, that I actually found an appreciation for them. So I do encourage everybody, if you have the opportunity to try on something that you may think you may not like, you may be surprised. When it came to the Tag Heuer Monaco, that watch looked awful on me. So I don't know if I'll ever get a Tag Heuer Monaco, and I need to remind myself of whether I like or dislike the Santos. So there'll be some watches I'll be checking out. Mr. Zoso says Rolex chronograph, new chronograph incoming. Maybe. I mean, we're at the 60th anniversary of the Daytona, and the ceramic Daytona came out I think in 2016. So whether they refresh the Daytona, I don't know. Everyone's talking about, well, are they going to refresh the ceramic steel Daytona? And I think if they do, it'll be something just similar to what they did with the Batman. They discontinued the Batman. And everyone's like, oh shit, the Batman's gone. hoard all your Batmans, and then a few years later it came back, new movement. So, Rolex may just update it, put a new movement, just update it to be, because it's what, 7 years old now, so it's getting to that point where it may need a refresh, but I don't think that that's going anywhere. I think Rolex will probably leave their anniversary stuff for probably some high-end models. I don't see a huge announcement this year. I think the biggest announcement is probably going to be with titanium. I don't think that they've just made a single titanium watch and that's the end of it for titanium. I think, if they made that investment to build a titanium watch, it's going to seep through. And I think JJ on his channel had talked about how he felt that the Sea Dweller, or the deep sea Sea Dweller, would be the natural, watch to the natural lineup in the watch brands to actually be the next titanium piece. So I actually don't disagree with that. I think JJ is spot on that they use the Deep Sea Challenge as the first piece, and then they'll probably be able to produce a Deep Sea Dweller with titanium. NATO says Audemars Piaget. Yes, if you guys watch ArchieLuxury from way back in the day, some of his first videos where he's talking about AP, he likes to claim it was just a brain fart, but he says it enough times and never says Audemars Piguet that I think he truly thought it was Audemars Piguet. Chris says, I miss Archie's old pronunciations. At least he says Khaleesi dial for a cloisonne. Yeah, he's definitely butchered a lot of things. A couple other ones, Helsolite instead of Hessolite, Helsolite instead of Gerald Genta, Gerald Gentra. Trying to think what else. JLC is not too bad. He's okay on JLC, I think. Ulysses Nardin, he says. Richard Millet, so it's Richard Mille. He calls it Richard Millet. So there's many ridiculous pronunciations. Zosa says, no, not a new Daytona, a whole new chronograph watch. Yeah, maybe a manual wind chronograph. It's possible. It's just look like, is Rolex really that invested in the chronograph? Like Daytonas historically have been not ever really produced in huge amounts in the past as it was. Daytonas have always, well, I wouldn't say always, there was a time when they were really dogs, but in more modern times, Daytonas have been pretty decent in terms of holding their value even before the ceramics were out. And they just never really made a ton of them. So I don't know if Rolex just hates chronographs or they just don't want to. I mean, they obviously used the Zenith chronograph movement for a long time. Chris says, there's a patent registered by Rolex on a new big date. We can speculate as to what existing model or new that might be. That's a good one, actually. If anybody wants to join the panel and talk watches, Mr. Smelly, you're welcome to talk some watches. I'll give you some free advice as well on your watch purchase. I know that you've been hunting down a vintage or neo vintage piece, so we can definitely walk through a couple of those things. A new big date. Yeah, I mean, that'd be cool. How many people hate the Cyclops? And maybe a big date would be there. Big date could be associated to a dress watch lineup. Maybe they're refreshing the Cellini, or a completely new lineup that could be out there. Look, is Rolex going to go down the route of complications, like high complications, like perpetual calendars? I mean, they could. They absolutely, probably have the technical prowess to do that. But, this may be just really just specifically for a dress watch lineup, a Cellini lineup, where they just want to invigorate something. And look, I don't believe the Crown can save the dress watch. I don't think they've historically never been good at selling these pieces. So, I mean, why would you put all your effort into that, right? Like, that's the way I see it, is why would you put all your effort into that if you've never really been that successful at it? Anyways, like, what's the need, right? Like, they don't really need to do that. There are other brands that need to, bring out fresh new lines like AP, like VC, because they just can't stay afloat, or the collectors are just getting bored with it. Lucy says Audemars Piguet. It's actually Piguet. He says Piguet. Audemars Piguet. Ben Seamer for Ben Clymer. Jerry Gentra. Jill O'Shea. And yes, Frank B corrects it, saying AP equals Pigwet. NATO says Clive. Yes, instead of Clyde, it's Clive. And Mr. Smelly says Archie's favorite fragrance is Terre d'Hermes. Terre d'Hermes. Yes. Hermene Dildo Xenia. Hermene Dildo Xenia, yeah. My brother actually just bought a Xenia suit. He was down to, I think he's got some weddings he's going to, so he was like, hey, why don't you come suit shopping with me? So we went to one of the stores, and he bought himself a Xenia. Xenia is a pretty tight fit sometimes, but he's slimmer than I am, so no issues. GMT says maybe a chronograph with a GMT function. Yeah, could be. Chronograph and a GMT, merging the two lineups, the two most popular lineups in the Rolex catalog, which are the GMT Master II and the Rolex Daytona. Look, I think we need to speculate more. Oftentimes we speculate on the side of, we often speculate on the side of the collector, right? Like we look at it like, what would we want to see? What do we like? But these guys, they're running a business, and they know very well, what is selling and what is not. Obviously they know which pieces are sought after and which ones aren't. You bring out a chronograph and GMT function. I'm trying to understand really the purpose that Rolex would do that. Like, why would they do that? Because they have very successful lineups within the chronograph section. They have a very successful lineup at the Daytona section. Where they aren't successful and they have a bit of cannibalization is in the GMT section, right? You got the Explorer 2 and you've got the GMT Master. And so there you see a bit of cannibalism in terms of like, well, if I'm a buyer looking for a GMT function, I have kind of two watches to go from, and whether you want to call the Explorer 2 a poor man's GMT, I wouldn't go that far, but generally speaking, unless you really love the design of the Explorer 2, most folks I know would simply purchase that watch because it is cheaper than the GMT Master 2. Yeah, I just try to really try to understand their logic behind that. Like, why would you basically cannibalize into that? Unless it's, because Patek does this, right? But Patek does it because you got collectors who want these unusual complications. Yeah, you can get a world time and you can get a chronograph. Well, there's gonna be that guy who wants both, and that's just Patek, right? Dodger says he'll give Higgy a nudge. Yeah, I didn't text Higgins. So yeah, if he's around for sure, he can hop on. Mr. Smelly says, thanks. I'd love more advice. I'll hop on when I have time. Yeah, Mr. Smelly, I have a vast knowledge of Rolex, vintage Rolex, neo-vintage Rolex. So, you and I can kind of go through that if you want. NATO says left-hand drive Daytona. Yeah, hey, who knows, right? That would definitely be a hit. Level 1 says titanium Daytona. I don't know. Maybe titanium Daytona. Maybe. I think the titanium is. They're going to want to use titanium for pieces that, if you think of the DC Challenge, it'd be a monstrous piece with a lot of weight to it if you did it in steel. So I'm sure the titanium will be reserved. Well, at least I think their first part of use of titanium will be around larger watches to make them a bit more accessible to people. People may like the feel of the watch just because it's a little lighter but a bigger size. That would make sense. With the Daytona already being a small watch, do you really want a lighter Daytona, right? Mr. Zoso says, I'm thinking more like an Explorer chronograph. Yeah, so you're talking about an Explorer 2 chronograph. Yeah, look, the Explorer 2 range, like I said, it's kind of in no man's land. It's cannibalizing the GMT group. When you're looking for a GMT complication, do you take the Explorer 2? Do you take the GMT Master? And I should probably give some visuals here because I am just sitting on the Piaget page here, but let me give some visuals for you guys on some Explorers. So we're talking about the Explorer 2 and looking at the Explorer 2, right? Like there was always rumors around, hey, will they add a ceramic bezel and maybe make the Explorer 2 maybe they make the Explorer 2 a more modern piece using the ceramic bezel. I don't know. I think it would be cool if they did that. I don't know if they ever will. We've been waiting for this one probably longer than we've been waiting for the Coke, I would say. But yeah, look, that would make sense. It would make sense to maybe spruce up this lineup, separate it from the GMT Master lineup, separate it from the Daytona lineup, and say, hey, you want an Explorer 2? Now, the real sad thing, I think, with the Explorer 2 is it started off as a watch for people who like to do cave exploring, where it had basically a day-night indicator. In that sense, you could say with the day-night hand, the big one, the big orange hand, to a GMT. When it came out with the 16550, they moved it to a GMT function. And then for it to become now a GMT chronograph, it's kind of like the third time around, right? Is it really gonna, I feel bad for this range. I don't feel bad for the Yacht-Master range, but for this one, I would feel a little bad. Ron the Shrink says, I quite like this Piaget. Yeah, you know what? I don't mind it. I don't mind the look of this Piaget. I think the dial is very nice. Ron, it is 50-some thousand, 50, I think it was like 58,000 or 50,000, 57,000 dollars US. So not a cheap watch by any means, 58,500. So Ron, not a cheap piece. And like I said, for that Piaget perpetual calendar steel, you can get a comparable perpetual calendar in steel from JLC probably for like 17,000 on the secondary market. So that'd be a better buy for me, in my opinion. Dodger says, I like green dials for some reason, especially the sunburst green on the Seiko Alpinist. Yeah, the Seiko Alpinist is a cool watch. I'll pull it up here for you, Dodger. The Seiko Alpinist. Definitely a cool watch. It was a watch that was very popular a few years ago. You can see here this green dial that our friend Dodger is talking about. So definitely it was a very popular watch a few years back, and I got no qualms with green, man. But it's like certain greens, because I think like the Hulk, I was like that with the Hulk. Like I mentioned, my dislike for certain pieces from photos back in 2014. Like I was looking at Hulks, and I didn't really care for it in terms of the photos. But when I bought my AP 15300 from a guy in Montreal, he was wearing a Hulk at the time. It was a sunny day, so I got to see really that sunburst style, and that's what sold me. I was like, after that day, I was like, I got to buy a Hulk, and I ended up picking one up on the cheap back before the boom. So yeah, guys, if you don't let pictures stop you from checking out watches, because you may be pleasantly surprised. Nato says, hey Ron, are you picking out the most terminal wristwatch to blow your settlement check on? Yes, that is definitely Ron the Shrink's MO. Ron the Shrink loves his Omegas. He's an Omega fanboy. We can probably go to the Omega site, check out some Omegas for you guys. We can bounce around. Obviously, you see the speed racing piece, a large monstrosity with the spirate update here. Let's see. If I just click Speedmaster, let's see if it just takes me to the actual. Yeah, here we go. For me, the spirate technology. Look, the way I see it is that technology, just like coaxial, it's gonna go into their other watches, right? If you think of Tudor, when Tudor came out with the Tudor North Flag, it was the first chronometer grade movement, in-house movement chronometer from Tudor, and did people care? Not really. It was cool to see from Tudor that they were doing finally an in-house movement, but I don't think the market really cared for that. And so the market oftentimes doesn't care so much about technology. If you think about it, right, is anybody really moved by superlative chronometer, -2, +2? Very, very funny, actually. When this watch came out a few days back, the Spirate technology for the super racing, everybody around YouTube somehow did not understand. Like, everyone was mispronouncing the chronometer specs. So, cost spec, people were saying, oh, it's like -8 to +2, like some random shit, where cost spec, is nowhere near that. Superlative chronometer, they were mixing it up with Metas, where superlative is -2 +2, Metas is 0 +5, and Costco is -4 +6. So, and again, right, the answer is, does anybody really care? I don't expect people to memorize that shit, because most people don't give a shit about these, these new technologies and the movement. So Yeah, I mean, in terms of this watch being, exciting, probably not. I'll probably just wait for this technology to trickle down into the regular moon watch, and then I'll buy it because I do believe that 0+2 is, fuck, that's actually pretty damn accurate. It's more accurate than superlative, right? So for me, that was a big thing when I bought the 3861. I had the 1861 movement moon watch, and for me, the 1861, I didn't like the bracelet. It was a cool watch, but just it needed some improvements, I think. And when they brought out the 3861, I believe that they improved the watch a lot. I know it's polarizing. Some people don't like the bracelet. I actually like the bracelet. But the chronometer spec, because the 1861 was not a chronometer. And famous story, Don Haynes had one, and his was running at like plus 30 seconds or something like that. And when he took it to Omega was like, yeah, that's within spec, which really pissed him off and threw him over the edge. He ended up getting it regulated, but when you can get a moon watch with a chronometer, with chronometer accuracy, it's definitely a plus. Obviously, I like the tapered bracelet versus the non-tapered and stuff like that. And for me, it's just, it's these little improvements. I'll wait for the iconic models to get them. You don't need to run out and get these, like I said, no one ran out and bought the Tudor North Flag, and now every one of the Tudor Black Bays has an in-house movement chronometer grade. All right, let me check through the chat, see what's going on, see what's popping in the chat. Dodger says, thanks, I love the Alpinist. Yeah, me too, man. NATO says, come on, Ron, you need Rolex. Ron used to have a Rolex. NATO, he sold his Rolex Submariner 14060, which is no date Submariner, two-liner. I believe it was a two-liner for him. He sold that for some form of Breitling. I forget if it's a standard Super Ocean. It was a Heritage too. NATO says, hype, baby. Yes, hype, baby. I wonder where hype is, actually. Sabnelli, good morning. Whole Milk says, I don't care about chronometer certification, but I do find the coaxial escapement interesting. Not many companies do a special escapement. Yeah, so the coaxial escapement, through the Daniels coaxial escapement was for sale to a lot of places. Omega ended up buying the coaxial technology. I had the coaxial, I think my oldest watch with coaxial was the Seamaster 22280.20, I believe, if I'm not. These fucking Omega references are crazy too. But basically, it's a Seamaster from Casino Royale, had a coaxial escapement. And, obviously the benefit to it was the elongated need. The movement would require less service, or you could extend the service time interval a little bit longer with the coaxial escapement. But again, right, not everybody cares about certain things. And for Whole Milk, chronometer certification doesn't mean anything. Doesn't care if it's accurate to 0 to +5 or 0 to +2 or -2 to +2 or -4 to +6, right? Like, any one of those is pretty damn accurate for you. So, this is why I said, like, is this really going to be, for the spy rate movement, really a hit? And I should probably go into that watch, because if I'm talking about the watch, the Speedmaster, if I'm talking about the watch, I might as well show the watch. I don't want that one. I don't want that one. I do want this one. I'm actually on the list for the Ed White, but I don't think, I'll just look up fucking spy rate or super racing. Super racing. Here we go. Super racing. Super racing. And let's reveal the price for 15,000 Canadian dollars. Meh. I'll just wait for it to drop down into the icons. Swing Kangaroo says Omega raised MSRP. Is it US Air Global? I'm just looking at Canada. Dude, I can't keep up with these price increases. I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, given the way the economy is going and inflation. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Mr. Zoso says, getting my 3861 bracelet today for the Snoopy. Beautiful, man. Beautiful. The Snoopy is, I didn't even try for the Snoopy. My Omega AD, the people that work there are friends of mine. I've known them for a long time in the collecting community. and super great people. And yeah, the 3861. Sorry, the Snoopy. We got a couple in my city, and I never really tried. I never really was like, I don't. I'm not gonna go chase the. I'm not gonna go chase the Snoopy. I'll rather chase the Ed White as a collector, as somebsomebody who really appreciates the 321 movement. I'm first on the list for that. We just haven't, unfortunately, seen any in my city. So Hans Knees and Toes says Tantan, the high-end watchman. Yeah, we can talk about high-end watches. Yesterday, I talked about Seikos. I talked about Seikos with Dis. I could talk about some Seikos. If Dis is around and wants to continue our Seiko talk, we could do it. Hans Knees and Toes says, what the fuck? 14060M. Yeah, no, we're on the shrink. You're gonna get plastered in the chat here. But let's see here. Seb Nelly says, thinking of getting an AP chronograph for the 50th. Is that a sturdy everyday watch? So I don't know if you're referring to the Royal Oak chronograph or the what they call the offshore chronograph. I'll pull up AP's website. We've got time here, guys. We've got nothing but time, so we might as well pull up and look. I think you can look at kind of two different lineups here when you're looking at chronographs. You can look at the Royal Oak lineup, and you can look at the offshore lineup because you'll be able to see chronographs. And in here, you got these are the divers. More divers. I think I got to scroll up here. So obviously, you got the standard offshore chronographs. This, I believe, so this is considered an offshore chronograph, but it's obviously not the same design as, for example, this piece over here and whatnot. But you can look at certain different offshore chronographs as well as the standard. I believe there's a standard Royal Oak chronograph as well. Do I believe that they're sturdy watches? Actually, let me go through the Royal Oak if they show any chronographs just in the standard lineup outside of the offshores. This website's not exactly the easiest to maneuver. Here, for complications, and see if we can modify. See if we can put. Yeah, here we go. Chronographs. So they do have both in the offshore lineup chronographs, and then you have your Royal Oak chronographs or ROCs. I personally would go for a Royal Oak chronograph as opposed to an offshore. Not a huge fan of the offshore. I think the Royal Oak chronographs are beautiful pieces. Obviously, with AP, you've got a whole different slew of options from design. The screen one's pretty nice. So yeah, I'm just gonna scroll through here before I get back into answering your question. I'll probably pull up. Oh, got Aiden who wants to join us. Aiden, how's it going?
How's it going? It's Tan. What's up, Tan?
Yeah, what's up? I'm talking watches here. Got questions coming at me left and right. What do you think of this Royal Oak chronograph?
I freaking like it.
It's beautiful. I think Seb's question is whether it's a sturdy everyday watch. Seb, I wouldn't wear this every day. Is it sturdy? Yeah, like you can wear it. I mean, I wore my AP 15300 to work almost almost daily. But if you're just in the office, it's fine as long as you're not banging your wrist into everything. But in terms of like daily use, probably not. So really depends on your lifestyle. If it's not too crazy and you take care of your watches, you'll be fine. But if you do have a lifestyle that you'll probably be banging that watch into things, I probably wouldn't recommend it. Hans Needs a Toast says Schmicko. We got a super chat here, Aiden. Level 1, $4.99. Tan, I'd like to hear your opinion on the Omega Seamaster Heritage Blue Dial. Let's pull this up. Aiden, are you familiar with this watch?
Yes, I actually have a Seamaster.
Beautiful. You have the Seamaster Heritage?
Not the Heritage, I don't think.
Yeah, I've never actually owned the Heritage. I'll pull up the Heritage. I believe he means this one.
Which one is the Heritage?
This is
pull it up, Tan. Pull it up.
There you go. This is the Heritage he's speaking about. Oh, this is the Platinum one. Sorry. We definitely want to talk. I don't want to talk about the Platinum one because if we talk about the Platinum one, that's not going to be the one. It's this one here. Not on my game today. So reveal the price of this one is. Oops, they're not revealing the price for me. 9,100 Canadian dollars. So this is the Heritage. Let's look at the specs. So it is a Metas movement. This is 41 millimeters, 13.9 millimeters thick. Between the lugs, 21 millimeters. It is 300 meters water resistant. We've got the faux patina. We've got the broad arrow hands and a lollipop style second hand. So maybe why don't you go first, Aiden? What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think that it's a really nice watch for sure. Beautiful, nothing, and it's Omega. I mean, it's Swiss. You know, it's got the coaxial movement. It's a good size, at least in my opinion. At least for my wrist, 41 millimeter. You know, you have the water resistance. It's a great watch. I mean, but I think the price is a little bit much, but not too bad for what it is. And I mean, if you want that classic Omega look, you know, and you got that, you know, and it's a sports watch, it's steel. I don't think you can really completely go wrong with this model. Nothing wrong with it. In-house movement as well. So
for me, you know, I'll show the movement as well. Yeah. Let me just pull up the movement here. Beautiful display case back. For me, I've had a love-hate relationship with the Seamaster 300. I've owned a few of them. I've owned the old wave dial. I've owned the ceramic with the standard dial, no wave. I've owned the Seamaster 300 blue with the new wave dial, and a lot of the aesthetic is what really pissed me off about that watch. It just, I don't know, it's too dated. And when I mean dated, it's like when you think of vintage can be dated but cool looking. When you kind of look at a 90s design, it's like, it's not really, I guess, in vogue these days. And just my eye just thinks it's a bit old and just not, you know, it's a bit old and tired. And I hate the scallop. I hate the scallop bezel. I've always hated it. It's better.
Some people
now.
like the nostalgia, though. Some people like the nostalgia, the 90s nostalgia. It brings them back. It brings them back to, you know, maybe better times for them.
Exactly, right. I think it's subjective in that sense of like whether you love or hate it. When it comes to this piece, though, to me, this is just, it really does bring that vintage vibe into a piece that's going to be modern. You know, 41 millimeter size is great. You know, faux patina, we're pretty desensitized on faux patina now, where when it first came out, everybody hated it and was like, well, fuck this. Like, you know, faux patina sucks. Now we see it all over the place. So to me, I'm indifferent now to it. Doesn't really bother me that it's there. Blue dial is beautiful. Like this to me is an extremely beautiful watch, level one. So I would, if I were to buy an Omega Seamaster 300, this would be the 300 I would buy. I wouldn't buy the 300 wave dial just because, again, right, aesthetics for me, it's just not my cup of tea anymore. And yeah, that's hopefully that answered your question. No super chat here from Frank the Tank, Australian $5. Thanks, Frank the Tank. 10 thoughts about the Yacht-Master II Steel. Very good looking watch with not so useful complicated function. Could this be a future collectible once discontinued? So let me pull up the Yacht-Master II Steel. Let's have a look.
Ooh.
Oh, this is, you know, it's a lot of people hate the Yacht-Master and Yacht-Master II. And I'll show the tab here. This is the Yacht-Master II Steel. We're talking about a regatta complication, which is counting down, I believe, the start of the yachting race. Not too familiar with actually the specifics of it. I actually asked Sirocco about it, and Sirocco said it's useless. So actually usability is questionable at best. You know, they're you know, and Rolex does market a lot into the yachting community. So, you know, there is a, you know, for some, like for example, Sirocco bought the Yacht-Master 1. There is some connection that people that are into yachting have to this lineup. The Yacht-Master 2, you know, I guess the most popular ones you'd see were, you know, with the gold, you know, people, and they're very flashy pieces too, right? So, I don't disagree, Frank, that this is a good looking watch. I actually like the overall aesthetic of the watch. I think the watch is quite good looking. I think it's a quirky watch. I think it's one that, I mean, I don't really understand its purpose in the lineup in terms of like real people that are buying it, but hey, they must be successful, right? Because in the yachting community, maybe this is the watch that everybody buys. Future collectible once discontinued. that's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. I just don't look. It has the recipes of it because usually future collectibles are pieces that were unpopular during the time that they were in existence, and then because they were discontinued, and then people started having an appreciation for them, that they became collectible. I see the first part of it where it's not liked and it's in steel and there may not be a ton of them. I'm trying to understand in the future where someone's going to look back and say, this is the Rolex to be collectible. So I don't know if this one actually will become a collectible. I don't think it will for that purpose. Aiden, what do you think? Am I totally off my rocker here? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I got to be 100%, transparent with you guys. I think that the Yacht-Master I don't know. It's just not the icon. It's not the iconic watch. It's not what you think of whenever you hear Rolex. And I mean, what it has going for it is that it is a Rolex. But other than that, I think there are just better options. I mean, I would go with so many other Rolexes over this one. I mean, even the Sky Dweller or, a Sub or, I mean, a GMT there's just so many better choices. But that's just my taste. I personally would not get the Yacht-Master.
So to give kind of an analogy of something that may become a collector's item is think of the Explorer 1, 39 millimeter Mark 1, the T-Rex hands. Everyone knows the T-Rex hands. Before the full loomed Explorer 1 39 millimeter. So obviously, it had a short run. It was a certain period of time before they went into the Mark II, Explorer 1 39 millimeters. The thing about the Explorer is it does have a history. People do buy vintage Explorers, especially the 1016. And it was quirky enough that, there are people that like the T-Rex hands. They like the aesthetic of that piece. And there is a bit of a cult following into that. Not a huge one, but there are people who do enjoy it. I know Archie, for example, prefers the T-Rex hands to the Mark II. I owned a Mark II. I never owned a Mark I. So for me, that may be something that may have some legs to it. I'm just trying to see the nostalgia piece for someone to look back and say, because really, Frank the Tank, and I'll use cars as an analogy here. People like these future classics is people, and when people are talking about what's going to become a future classic in the cars, is people buy what they remember. Okay, that is an important piece. So in cars, when you're a kid and you're looking at these aspirational cars, when in my day it was the Diablo or the Countach, and today it could be like the Huracan because they're all over YouTube. All the major YouTubers are using the Huracan platform as the car that they're using. So when kids are watching that, and then when they get older and they have the disposable income, they buy what they remember, right? That's why you see these cars from, the Nissan GTR and the old Supras and stuff like that going up, because when when people were younger, that's the cars that they wanted, but now they can afford it. When I'm thinking about people buy what they remember, I don't think this is going to be a very remarkable piece, Frank the Tank, and that's why I think it may not have legs to be a future collectible. So hopefully I gave you some value for that super chat, because I do appreciate super chats coming in for us and helping out ArchieLuxury on that.
Tan always gives the value for the super chats, because Tan is the man. You do a good job on these streams, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. I want to make sure that people, when they super chat in, and it's not required, to interact with me. I try to pull up as many chat questions as I can. But obviously it helps out Archie. So that is a benefit and a plus. PepRex 2 pound Cell 3861 Speedy / Black Bay 58 for the new Explorer 1. I'll give you this one first. Aiden, what are your thoughts?
Sell Speedy for a new Explorer 1. That's tough. And
don't even think of it in a financial thing, right? Think of it first as, because I think money wise, we're kind of in the ballpark. We're not too far off the ballpark. It's whether you would do that, right? Let's say that those were your only two watches. You had a Speedy and you had a Black Bay 58. Would you consolidate those two for an Explorer 1? I think is really the question.
I don't think I would. I'm not a huge fan of either of those watches, but I mean, if you only have two watches, It depends on what else he has.
Yeah, look, I don't even, I don't personally even think, think in that sense of like, hey, do you have this vast collection and you're just trying to consolidate a corner of it? Like, I'm looking at this question, or Pepper X, I'll take this question as you only have these two watches, or this is the only two that you really want to look at. I don't think you should do it, and I'll tell you why. I think that you've got a lot more variety when it comes to having a chronograph and a diver. I'm wearing actually a Black Bay 58 right now. I wear it almost daily. Because for me, it's a very enjoyable piece. It's a great size. I have it on the strap, and I really do enjoy that piece. So, that and the Speedy, I think you're going to get a lot more value from having the extra complication and the diver versus an Explorer 1, which is an iconic piece. I love the Explorer 1, but I just think that when it comes to when you look at that watch and you're going to be kind of like, hey man, I used to have a chronograph and my diver and I have this. I think you're just losing a lot of the real functionality that you got from these other two pieces. So money aside, brands aside, right? In terms of like pure enjoyment from wearing the pieces, I would say that you would enjoy having the Speedy and the Black Bay 58 a lot more than getting the Rolex, even though I'm sure Bear Clooney or ArchieLuxury would tell you to get Rolex, always get Rolex. But to me, that's not always the case. So,
you know what? I agree with you. On that, Tan. Yeah, keep the Speedy and the Black Bay over that.
Swing Kangaroo says the Speedy in the Black Bay is a bang combo. I agree. It's a very, very strong, very strong combination. Mike the Snake says, I love the Yacht-Master 1 in white gold. I believe he means the Oyster Flex. Hey, Mikey, if you want to hop on the stream, obviously you're welcome to join us. We're just doing a bit of a pre-show. I'll probably end maybe like 30 minutes before Archie. So give me some time to recharge my batteries on my AirPods and see if I can hop on. Adil, hey, how's it going? Nice to see you as well. And Adil says, keep the Speedy. Keep the Speedy. I'll show you my Black Bay, actually. It's a Black Bay blue on the strap. So a couple of different options on the Black Bay blue. It's not any of these. Let's see here. It's this one right here. So this is this is the watch I'm wearing right now. The Black Bay blue on the strap. I really like this strap. I think the strap is pretty cool. It's got a single deployment buckle, and to me, the blue really it gives for me the nostalgia of the blue is it's going to the old Tudor Submariners. Hey Mikey, how's it going? I don't know if you're in the chat yet, but I'll show you a bit of the nostalgia here, Aiden, of what I mean by the Tudor Subby blue. So if you see here, this Mikey, you don't have keys anymore.
What's that?
You have keys? I wasn't sure if you had keys or not. You were just sitting in the background.
Oh, I just logged on with the link. I should still have the keys unless Archie yanked them again.
No, I think you do. I wasn't sure why you were just showing the background. But yeah, so I'm talking about the Tudor Black Bay blue. So the reason I like that watch and I chose the blue was, for me, when I think of a Tudor Submariner, I think of the blue Tudor. So this is, for Tudor at least, the blue bezel, the blue dial is historic to the brand. And so when I had the opportunity to pick this watch on the absolute cheap, it gave me a bit of nostalgia. So Mikey, did I make the wrong choice? Should I get rid of the Tudor Black Bay blue and just take the money and run? What do you think?
I don't know. It's a nice looking watch, but I've never been a big fan of the Black Bay. Is this a 58?
This is a 58. And I'll tell you, you know what's funny about the 58, Mikey, was I owned a Black Bay 41 at the time this watch came out. It actually the Black Bay 58, the original Black Bay 58, came out the same time as the Rolex Pepsi GMT, because I was at the Rolex event in Toronto when it came out. And everybody obviously was all about Pepsi. And once I was done taking my photos of the new Pepsi on my wrist, one of the girls that was working the event was like, hey, would you like to try on the new Black Bay 58? And I was like, nah. I was like, I like the 41. I like the heft. I don't need this pussy size, this girl size Black Bay. But she's like, no, she encouraged me. She's like, no, try it on. Like, come on, try it on.
It's
So I'm
39,
like, all right.
right?
39, yeah. So,
Yeah.
you know, she twisted
It's
my
not
arm
that small.
to try it on. And look, I didn't mind the 39 size. I thought it was actually, it actually fit quite well. So, yeah, for me, it's not a bad thing. What do you think, Mikey?
No, I guess I don't really hate it for any real valid reasons. I don't like the faux rivets, and on the bracelet, and then the other reason I really don't like it is just because everybody else just loves it so fucking much, and I know that's not a valid reason for hating it, but I just do, and it's kind of like the irregular Seamaster. I'm with you. I don't like the scallop bezel. I don't like the the skeleton hands, and the bracelet. I don't like on it either. But I absolutely love the 300 Heritage.
JJ, what's happening?
What's going on, fellas? Sorry, I was trying to get on before when I was on the road, but it wouldn't allow me. I couldn't hear anything. I don't know what was going on.
Mr. 100, how was the 100th episode of JJ's Watch Hangout?
Oh, it was dynamite.
Oh, cool! Glad to hear it.
Dynamite.
Yeah,
JJ,
yeah.
Now that you're here, we're gonna ask you the hard questions.
So, Tim,
Sure.
what did you think of the Black Bay 41?
I like the 41. I had no issues with it. I had multiple 41s. I had the ETA movement, the smiley.
Yeah,
I
the
had
smiley. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I had the chronometer one after that. I had no qualms with that. I just like how, you know, just the different proportions of the 58, bit smaller. You know, just
Yeah.
again, right? Think of the first Submariner that came out, the Rolex Submariner when it first came out. It was a 37 millimeter watch. It wasn't a 40.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm just a bigger watch liking guy, but like when I was at the store though, I had the 41 and the Pelagos in my hand, both, and I opted for the Pelagos, and I absolutely loved it. It's actually was my favorite watch out of all of my watches, including my Rolexes. The bezel, actually, the clicks on it are sweeter and nicer.
Drop them, Dan. Drop them. No, I'm only kidding.
No, there's
Drop
only 60 clicks, not 120 like on a Rolex. But still, the sweetest bezel with zero backlash, the nicest bezel I have ever had the opportunity to twist. And it actually weighed the same as my Submariner. So, you know, people complain about titanium being too light. It had heft. And size-wise, I think it's 41 or 42. Right. And I like the Smurfy blue. I like the flat blue color of it, so I bought that. But I also really liked the kind of the retro old look of the Blackberry 41 that still had the anodized aluminum bezel, and it just kind of looked like a pre-ceramic watch. Which it kind of was. It's getting a little long in the tooth. That's why I didn't opt for it, and went for the Pelagos. And if I have the opportunity, I will replace that Pelagos. I loved it.
Cool. We got some super chat. We got a super chat backing up here, so just we'll go through this one real quick. Bright Blue Comment asks, so Tan, which current watches are like Countach's? Where kids today will grow up and watch them and want them because they admire them today. JJ, this is a hard question for you. If we were to, so I said the comment of people buy what they remember. Okay, so you may not have the money today to buy something that you want, but let's say 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, you have a lot more disposable income, and maybe that watch has gone down. Maybe you have the money to buy it. What would that be, JJ?
Well, if you want to compare it to a Countach, this is a good question from Bright Blue Comment. I'm going to go with like an RM11, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
basically, it's looking for future classics is really the gist of the question.
Don't you think it's just always going to fall on Submariner?
Yeah, but Submariner is way more attainable than a Countach. It's like, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but I mean, as far as future classics go, I mean, it's just like the standard. It's just always going to be the standard future classic. I mean, a Countach, if you're talking about rare future classics.
I'll give you an example. If you're talking about Submariner, Mikey, it's the Hulk, right? Like everyone, the Hulk sure. If you think about the Hulk, right? The Hulk is so expensive right now. So
Yeah.
expensive, right? If you're a kid or you're a collector that's, in your journey
Yeah.
and you just, you're at a different level of disposable
Yeah,
income
no,
today.
that's a much more valid analogy.
You
I
see the
agree.
Hulk, right? The Hulk is a, $20-some thousand watch, and it's very expensive. But let's say it's 10 or 15 years down the road, and the Hulk has come down in price a lot because maybe there's a new Hulk that's out, or just the green has kind of gone on out of vogue. Well, a lot of people will remember the Hulk for its just how much people love that piece. It's one watch that was very polarizing years ago, but today is is definitely very hot. So that would be an example of it. Like RM11 could be one. There's a lot of examples of pieces.
Nautilus would be a good one, right?
Yeah, I think the Nautilus is tough
Yeah.
because I think the Nautilus they'll keep that model current. So whether it's a 5711 or what have you, I
Plus,
think
it's
that
just unobtainable, like financially.
yeah, it's something that might go away, JJ, in that you could probably buy it at a discount down the track. And I think, and I don't want to, obviously because we have a super chat here that I want to get to Bright Blue comment, but that's my simple answer to your question. Frank the Tank, $2 Australian. Thoughts on the Black Bay 58 gold green dial heavy discount used? I'm going to pull this up. What do you boys think of this one? This is the gold green. I have it on the cloth strap here. What are your thoughts?
So it's a gold watch or gold plated?
There's no gold plating in Black Bay. I think they do what's it called, rolled gold or something like that. At least they've done for their two tones.
I know they make a silver and a bronze version as
they
well.
do, but yeah, but they're
so
gold.
this is solid gold with a green bezel. I like it.
JJ, what do you think? He's saying heavy discount. What do you think of this look?
Hate it. I hate it.
JJ's not a fan.
Yeah, I would steer clear of any type of semi-precious metal, whatever they're doing over there in Tudor.
Yeah, I like it, but if I'm gonna get a solid gold watch, it would not be a Tudor.
Stick with the
steel. Even a rolled gold. Let's say it's rolled gold. Rolled gold is it's not as
Gilt,
cheap as
gilt gold or something they call it. It's like super thick gold plating, right?
Yeah, it's not. It's more robust than gold plating, but either way, like I would kind of agree. Like precious metal Tudor doesn't really make a lot of sense, even though he's getting it at a heavy discount. Even then, like Frank the Tank, it's
kind of an oxymoron.
Well, and look, some people love the aesthetics of the Black Bays, right? And if that's you and you just love it because you love the green, you love the gold, it's at a price point that you feel comfortable with. I would say that there's no issues for you to buy it. In terms of like whether subjectively JJ or myself or Mike or Aiden, do you like this watch or you don't like this watch? Aiden, give us his take as well.
Yeah, so I think that you could definitely do worse. But as far as for me, as far as just the Tudor brand in general, it's just like it's a compromise. It's just like it's just not Rolex. So I mean that immediately, when every single time I see a Tudor, I just think of that like well, it's not a Rolex. But as far as this version, I don't know. I wouldn't get it. I would just go for something else. I would pass.
If I could offer up another suggestion here, you want to get a precious metal diver at a heavy discount, I would be looking more at something like a Breguet Marine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Breguet Marine is...
That's another reason I don't like the Black Bay 58 is because it's like trying so hard to be a Submariner. And it's from Tudor. And, like that solid gold one, for the same money, you could go get yourself a Hulk or a Cermet, and even probably save a few bucks and have a real Rolex in green.
Another super chat here from PepRex. Thank you, PepRex, for the £5. I have a 6.5-inch wrist. Was thinking of selling the Speedy as I keep thinking it's too big and downsizing to the 36mm Explorer one as I like that size or DHS. So this is a follow-up question, Aiden, from his question before around consolidating the Black Bay 58 and the Speedmaster to the Explorer one. So PepRex, in this situation, I would say that if you feel that the 42mm is just too big and it's just you're not getting enjoyment out of it, then do the deal, because the real important part is you don't want to buy a watch just because other people tell you to buy a watch. Just because Archie says, "Man on the Viking Moon, Reverso and Explorer 2."
Totally, man.
Because if you buy something you just don't like or you don't enjoy,
Yeah.
so in that,
Especially if you got small wrists, then 41, 42s is too big for your wrist. And so, yeah, I'm in 100% in agreement with you.
yeah, like if you have pieces that you're just not enjoying because you feel that they're just too big or they just look too big, then yeah, definitely consolidate into something and or get into something that's different. I think the Explorer 136 millimeter is a beautiful watch. It's classic. It's the classic style. If you want to go date just, look, if you want the Explorer to be a little bit more sporty, go with the Explorer 1. If you want to, with the date just, you can be sporty-ish with the Oyster bracelet. If you want to be dressy, I prefer 36 millimeter. Sorry, JJ, what did you say?
No, I was just saying you could get a smooth bezel to make it more sporty as well.
Yeah, smooth bezel, Oyster bracelet if you want to do sporty on the date just. Personally speaking, I like fluted and Jubilee. I think I like my date just a bit more dressy, especially if I'm going for a 36 millimeter date just. So really, Pepper X it's for whatever purpose you're looking for. If you want the sporty look, Explorer 1's fine. Date just, like we said, smooth bezel, Oyster bracelet would be great choices. But look, I understand your question a lot better now, and I appreciate obviously you super chatting in the follow up. We did have a really good question here from AXK. Tan panel, what's a watch you love but is disliked by the majority? I'm going to open this one up to you guys first. Maybe Mikey, why don't you start?
Watch that I love but is disliked by the majority. Go to the other guys. I need to think about this one for a little bit.
Okay, Aiden, what about you?
Easy. And I would just say even just a whole brand, Grand Seiko. Like I like Grand Seiko, and everyone hates Grand Seiko, so it makes me like it more.
Grand Seiko's a good choice. JJ.
Does it have to be a higher end brand, or could it be anything?
It could be anything, man. It could be anything.
All right, I got a watch that I really enjoy. It's what everyone calls a shitter, cheap, under $1,000. I love my Unimatic and Messina Lab combination dive watch. Everybody makes fun of that watch.
JJ living in the obscure. I'm going to go with a simple answer here, AXK. I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anybody. It'll be the Patek Calatrava. I really love that watch. Everybody hates it. Nobody wants it. I believe everyone calls it girl size on 37 millimeter, even though when you wear the 5196, it wears a lot bigger than 37. Some people are like, it's a grandpa watch. And it really opens the discussion of the idea of a grandpa watch, right? Because when we think of grandfathers, we think of our grandfathers. And if you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s, the likelihood of him wearing, a watch that looks similar is probably true. But if you think of it today, right? Like if you think of your children and or, if you're listening of grandchildren, what watch are they seeing on your wrist today? Mikey, what watch do you think that they're seeing on their grandfather's wrist?
Oh, no.
That's a
36. 36 size watch. I mean, I don't even think they made them bigger back then.
Well, that's the thing I'm saying is how ubiquitous these sports models are, especially with folks like in our age bracket and even older, right? Like people are wearing subs, they're wearing GMTs, they're wearing all these things. So children might be looking at that and saying, "Well, that's my grandpa's watch." And what's interesting?
Your grandfather's in your 60s. Chances are he could be wearing a Daytona right now.
Well, exactly. What's interesting is if you see the how popular Daniel Wellington became, a few years ago. I don't really follow them at all, but Daniel Wellington, the design of those pieces was, what we as watch collectors would describe as dress watch, but they were selling like hotcakes to a younger demographic who didn't perceive that. They didn't have that view of it, because the way watch collectors look at it is they say, well, back in the day, my father or my grandfather would wear their, solid gold, quote unquote, dress watch with a suit. Today, a kid or the younger generation may say, that's a perfect watch for, just dressing casually, right? So I think that for me, it was a long-winded answer on the Calatrava. Mikey, have you made your decision here?
Yeah, I have. Panerai. Yeah,
interestingly enough,
they're kind of polarizing. People either love them or they hate them. But yeah, I happen to love Panerais. I've owned many, and I happen to love them.
You know, two
Can I
watches.
say something about grandpa watches?
I was kind of talking about the Calatrava. People call it a grandpa watch, and then I start challenging them on like, well, what's your grandfather wearing today? And it ain't no Calatrava. It's probably a Daytona or a Submariner or a GMT.
Well, what I was just going to say is that term grandpa watch, the reason why you only see grandpas wearing certain of these gold watches is because they're expensive and only grandpas, you know, can afford them, or not many young people, you know, you don't see many young people with solid gold watches because they're expensive, right?
Yeah. I've got, I only have very sad grandpa watch stories.
Well, Mikey, let's you know,
Let's keep
your
it.
state of
Let's
mind
keep it on
good.
the light
Oh,
side.
it's not. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not
Mikey.
that sad. I just
No,
wanted,
but Mikey,
during my.
Mikey, you've had some tough times over the past couple of days. Let's keep it lighthearted for you. Let's keep you smiling here, Mikey.
You know, it's all good. I just when during my rough time in my life, I sold my grandfather's watch, and to, you know, maintain what I was doing, and it was something that people would have guffawed over today. It had a minute repeater. I remember it went ding. It was I think it was probably white gold, although I thought it was steel, and I got fleeced. You know, I went and sold it for nothing. And then recently, my brother gave me a 36 date, or no, not date just two-tone, and I used it as a trade-in to get my James Cameron, and I didn't realize how much it was actually worth, and got completely fleeced on it. And I mean, I could have gotten 3 times what I got on the trade-in towards the James Cameron for it. In retrospect,
way to keep it lighthearted, Mike.
Well, no, the good thing is I got my James Cameron, and I'm completely happy now. I'm very, you know, I'm not crying over spilled milk. There's just, you know, some things you just think about, and you're kind of like, but you know, I don't mean to bring the mood down. I've got my James Cameron. I love it. And yeah, life is good.
All right, fake legs.
Avatar is legendary.
Yes, I didn't. Sorry, I didn't even see the avatar. But Fake Clegg says, pull up the Monaco Legend Group IG. 1/1 Platinum Yacht-Master belonging to ex-president of Rolex is coming up to auction soon. All right, so this is a Yacht-Master 1. It's got some jewels on the dial, sapphires and diamonds. Fake Clegg says it's a 1/1. I'm not familiar with this watch. I'll read the commentary. Coming from the descendant of the original owner of the family, the one and only Yacht-Master in platinum. So this is a arguably or claimed piece unique. It's a unique piece made for the Heiniger family, father and son, longtime presidents of Rolex. This unique piece is furthermore important because it has the 10th million chronometer movement. I mean, is that really? It's not really a thing. The 10th millionth chronometer movement produced by Rolex, marked on a unique shade of the gray dial with sapphire. So it actually says here on the dial here, 10 millionième, which is this is 10. Millionième, which is millionth. Chronomètre, which is the 10 millionth chronometer. It is a tritium, or it's supposed to be tritium, because you have the tritium hands here. So Swiss T, greater than 25. Let me see what else is unique here. Unique shade of gray dial, sapphires and diamonds, especially engraved for the reason the 10 millionth number. A unique and once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own a watch that was once going to become a legendary piece of Rolex production. So this is being auctioned on the 22nd and 23rd through their exclusive pieces time auction. I can't verify any of the authenticity of this piece. So Fake Clegg, if you have any more info on it.
We talked about this watch the other day. It got brought up at least, and wow is all I can say. It's like a Babe Ruth grand slam, you know, and being there and catching the ball or something, you know.
Let me ask you guys, like, what would drive you to bid on something like this? You know, like, I understand it's a piece unique, but it's the Yacht-Master. Like, not everybody loves the Yacht-Master. Like, what would drive any of you guys to bid on something like this?
Well, I love the Yacht-Master, first of all. and I love piece uniques. You know, if I had the money and had the opportunity to, you know, a serious chance to actually get my hands on something that rare, you know, I would definitely go for it.
All right.
But
Anybody else on the panel want to make a comment before I move on to the next super chat?
I just want to say I really like the sapphires on there. I think that's really cool, and then it meshes well with the diamonds because it has the sapphires.
We're learning something new about Aiden. He likes the gaudy. He likes the jewels.
30 dials, right?
Yeah, I'm normally not too big on diamonds, but I think that it kind of works in this case.
yeah, no, this one's done very tastefully.
JJ,
And
would you buy
I
this?
love the bezel on the Yacht-Master. It's reverse. It's bossed. You know, everything is raised above the bezel. It's not sunken down in or flush. So, yeah, that's kind of unique thing about the Yacht-Master that I really like.
Go ahead, JJ.
I think it's kind of subtle for what it is. I mean, this is a platinum piece, right? The whole thing is platinum, or am I mistaken?
It's platinum.
Right, not just the bezel. All right.
Not just
yeah, I mean, you know, it's pretty. That's pretty stealth. It's in platinum, and the 30 dial is done. This is a 30 dial, right? There's no difference between this and the.
I don't think they're describing it as a 30 dial, but sure, yeah.
Right. I think it's subtle enough. There's not much going on. I think it's tastefully done. I like this one. It's pretty cool.
JJ can appreciate it. JJ would not open the bank to buy one of these.
No. I wouldn't buy this. This is probably.
There you go. So fake leg. You know, I think you need to be a very discerning collector. Either you're a Yacht-Master collector, or you love the Yacht-Masters like Mikey, or you're discerning in the sense that you want something extremely unique and a piece of history. I think that's the kind of buyer that would buy this, and or somebody who's looking to add some investments into the collection. First,
you know who I could see that would love this? I could imagine Watch Eric buying this. He loves like 30 dials, and he has a lot of gem set dials. He has the date, I believe, with the hard to get that ruby. You know, the ruby at the 6 and the 9. I think it's black dial, if I'm not mistaken. But he's very much into the gem set dials and the 30 dials and stuff. I could definitely see this as being something he would love to add into his
Sirocco loves the
Sirocco doesn't have any type of collection anywhere near that. So he would never be a serious buyer for this. And so an actual serious buyer, I could see Watch Eric being interested in that.
Yeah. All right. So Anthony T he's been following along in the channel. We got the professor also joining us. Hey, professor. Put you up at the top here because you have your camera on. Anthony C has been following the channel and he knows what I'm looking for. Anthony C, $499. Tan, what piece will you acquire in 2023 besides the 5212? I really hope I can acquire a 5212 in 2023 if one comes up for sale in Canada, or if the punter in the chat 1105 wants to be gracious enough to sell me his in Canada, I'd buy that. I'm also probably looking at getting a Daytona in the next couple of weeks. I'll probably be making the purchase on a Daytona. I've never actually owned a Daytona before in my life, so I thought maybe it was time to explore and see if I like the Daytona, but I'm not 100% sure if I will or I won't enjoy it. If I don't get the Daytona, I might look at a Lange 1. You know, I like that piece, and or maybe a 5226 Calatrava. I'll show you guys the 5226 here.
10. Remind me, I want to let you know about a certain Lange. If you're looking for a Lange 1, you said.
Yeah, Lange 1. Like for me, Lange 1, I'd probably do a white metal.
Yeah, I'm going to send you a link to a cool one to check out.
Okay.
I was looking at the Daytona just the other day, and it just looks small. I mean, I didn't try it on or anything. It was just in the case, but it just, you know, in looking at it through the case, it just, the first thing that came to my mind was that's just too small for me. Like, but it's so, such a like sought after watch by everybody.
So this would be one example of something I'm looking at is the 5226 outside of the 5212. I'm also looking for a 3940 perpetual calendar, white gold, if I can get it. So those are a couple of things on my hit list right now. I think if Patek revamps the 96 reference into a 6196 with a new movement, I may flick my 5196 and get a 6196 Calatrava as an alternate to that. I may also look at the Vacheron Traditionnel. Let's show the Vacheron that I'd be wanting to get.
All beautiful. All beautiful.
Yeah, I'll show you the one I'd be looking to get. It's pretty simple. You guys have probably seen it on the channel.
This one is really got a lot going on.
This is also another option.
As does this.
I sent JJ a link to buy one of these for like, what was it, like 12 grand, JJ?
12 grand, yeah, that was a steal.
12 grand. Yeah, like these are the kind of pieces I'm looking to buy this year, Anthony. But if you're asking about a short-term acquisition, it'll probably be the Daytona.
Tan, it's sold. Bad news. I found a longer one, moon phase in platinum for like 32,000. It was a fucking steal.
Oh,
it was a steal.
Beautiful.
They sold.
We got a question for you, JJ. Super chat from Frank the Tank, $5 Australian. I'd like to hear JJ's thoughts and idea of consolidating on Rolex and going upstream, higher horology pieces, just like what he does with his collection now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea if you could do it. I do it myself. I feel like I'm the type of person, right, who doesn't need 20. Let's say like I don't need 20 Nissans, right? I'd rather have 5 Mercedes. Whatever.
Sure.
Stupid comparison, but you know what I mean. It's like it depends how many you're at. What do you feel is good? Like me, I want to stay under 10, like really nice watches. For now, anyway. At least till I get to a certain level. So every time I start like getting the itch to get another one, I say instead of getting another one, let me go upstream one, and I'll sell off one to replace it, and add the difference instead of just buying a watch. You know what I mean? So instead of spending, let's say, 20,000 on a watch, I'd rather upgrade that piece to, let's say, a $30,000 or $40,000 watch, say something like that, or even if it's a few thousand more, and just add the watch plus the cash. You know what I mean? If the deal is worth it, you don't want to get screwed every time you do that because that could hurt you too. So it's really, you got to be crafty when you're doing stuff like that. You can't be, you don't want to get your ass handed to you every time you do a trade. You trade yours in at wholesale and you buy the other one back at retail. It's kind of, you got to be a little cautious with that. But I think that's a good way to climb the ladder. And I think it's a smart way to do it because as your taste change and your experience grows, you kind of really fall into knowing what you like,
Yeah, and like me, if you sell something off and then you realize that you really loved it, you can always get it again.
Look, for me, I've done this a lot in the past. Interesting. I actually did this in the reverse. It was funny. I sold my 15300 at the time, and I think I bought a Hulk and a Batman. And Archie made a video about me called "People Who Used to Have Money" or something like that. People who have money that don't have it anymore or something. It was really funny. But I have obviously consolidated to purchase higher end pieces. Look, I think if you're looking to explore and you're looking to expand your horizons, there's nothing wrong with doing that. And look, like JJ said, just be careful because you may not have the same resale value, and you may, if you're looking to just horse trade back, it may be you may have to lose a bit to get there. We have one more super chat here. I just want to get to AXK, £2. Thanks, AXK. He asked the first question, so he's asking now the reverse question. So the first question was, I think it was like, what is a watch that you love that everyone thinks is crap? I think now it's like, what watch do you consider is crap but everyone loves? Professor, you're new to the panel. What do you think? What watch do you think is crap but everybody loves? I think I know the answer to this one from you.
You do?
I think you're going to say the Nautilus.
Oh, that was not meant to be a watch.
So I was right. I knew your answer. So I was right. Okay. I got 1 out of 1 here. Professor, what do you think? What watch do you consider crap but everybody loves?
It's usually the hyped pieces.
Anyone in particular?
No, it doesn't. Nothing comes to mind. The point I wanted to make is something about vintage watches and older pieces that's related to the Yacht-Master that you demonstrated earlier. And Archie has spoken in the past, and I do also agree with his point that it's very difficult in the vintage space. It's very difficult to discern, especially as technology improves and dials come and go, to discern the originality of a watch. And I would like to throw out there a question to all of you as to how possible do you think is it for a CEO to have his watch thrown out there for a sale?
I
How
think that
possible?
it was saying, I think it's saying that this is the descendant of the CEO
Well,
selling it.
how possible is it for the descendants of the most powerful, if not the most powerful watch company, to be floating one of his watches?
I don't think it's impossible. It
I
really
find
kind of
it highly unlikely.
it could be
Believe
unlikely.
you me.
It could be unlikely. In terms of the origin of the piece, I don't think anybody has a comment of whether it's original or
Well,
not. We just don't have enough info on the piece to know if it is original or not.
I
Exactly.
think there's a lot of people that have money like that buy and then just they never sell. You know, they hang on to what they have, and if they buy more, that's what it is.
Especially somebody like them, who were the most influential father and son in the history of Rolex, the most powerful, the ones who really brought the company to its present position. Can you imagine his descendants to be? I mean, they must be really poor to be selling such a watch.
Could be.
Are
Right.
you talking about that platinum one?
Yes.
We're talking about the one fake leg sent in.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And it's
that-
like the Sterns going around selling their one or two Nautilus, original Nautilus,
yeah.
or one of the grandkids selling one of the granddad's watch because they need the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
This
know.
doesn't happen, guys. So
Totally.
the question
totally
is to
see that.
everyone the originality of that watch and other watches that float around, because in the vintage world, a lot of it is fake. A lot of the
Yeah.
dials are fake. A lot of the cases are fake. Today in Italy, in Turkey, in China, they make exact pieces of dates with exactly the same weight and the mechanism, right? Thinking that unless you open it and you go 2 or 3 layers into the watch, you actually, if you open the case, you think it's original. So all I'm saying is that, in
Well,
general,
let's go back to that, Professor, because there's a follow on to that one. So I have a follow up on to that.
yeah,
specific
I'm
topic.
just throwing it out there. I could
No problem.
be
We have half
wrong.
an hour. Yeah, we have half an hour
Yeah.
before Archie starts, so we'll still be able to do it. Rest of the panel, let's answer AXK's question. Reverse question. What do you consider crap but everyone loves? JJ, what do you think?
Grand Seiko.
All right, JJ's grand. That was an easy one. Aiden.
I mean, he mentioned vintage watches. I would say there's a lot of vintage watches that are just kind of a little bit overhyped in price, and they're just kind of falling apart and stuff like that. And then also the Daytona. I don't think it's crap, but it's a little overhyped.
Mikey.
And by the way,
I got 2: the Daytona and the Black Bay 58.
All right, and I'm gonna
I
stab
just,
JJ. Sorry, go ahead, JJ.
no, I was just gonna say I just picked Grand Seiko to get a rise out of Aiden, but it didn't work.
Didn't work. JJ, you got another
no.
one here you wanna use or no?
I've been hearing about people, going after Grand Seiko for years now, so it doesn't bother me at all.
Would you say Dan? I'm sorry.
Do you have another one you want to use besides the cheeky Grand Seiko? Or I got a few, so.
I mean, no, I don't know. I don't really disagree with the. I'm not a very big contrarian, so it's a difficult question.
Okay. I'll give you a few of them. I'll stab JJ in the back a couple of times. The Batgirl.
Oh, get me.
That stab JJ back. Oh, Batgirl. Vacheron Constantin, Overseas Generation 3 Blue Dial.
Oh, that's my grail.
I know, stabbing you guys all in the back with that one. And what else?
You got me
What
good
else?
there,
The
bud.
Break 1797. You hate that one
No,
too?
no, no, no. I love
Alright.
that watch. I love that watch. What else do
Panda,
people love?
oh,
What else do people love that I think is what I consider crap, but everyone else loves?
I got a question for you, Tab. What do you think of the 5712?
So that's the Nautilus with the complications.
The weekly, right? Yeah. The weekly.
Yeah. So I had an option to buy the 5712 when I bought my 5711, and I preferred the cleaner dial to the other. I think the 5712 uses the 240 movement micro rotor. It has the power reserve. It has I don't know if it has a moon phase. I forget. I think it has a moon phase. For me, it was never really. It never because I never liked the Neptune, which is. I'll show you guys the watches actually. I got visuals here. I might as well show it. So let's talk about the pattern.
Yeah, while you pull it up, I just want to tell you, I have a major love affair for this watch, and I know this is not a very popular watch. A lot of people don't like the clunky layout. I love this watch. I would love to get this watch. I just don't want to pay so high over retail. But if I ever found a really good deal on this, I would try to make it happen. I think.
Yeah. So you have obviously date, moon phase. You got you've got power reserve. In small seconds.
All the good.
I think if you're blind, this is a perfect watch.
And we got a super chat from Bright Blue Comet as well, by the way.
Hey, Jen, I got to jump off. I got to go take care of some stuff if I'm going to be able to make it onto Archie's.
No problem, Mikey.
I'll check you in half an hour or so, hopefully.
Yeah, no worries. Archie's already linked this stream to the mainstream, so we're gonna be fine. But here, JJ, see you, Mikey, by the way.
Cool. Thanks, man. And thanks for it was first time I've ever jumped on an early stream, so very cool.
Oh, good, man. You're welcome anytime.
You totally rock, dude. Love you, man.
Thank you. Love you too.
All right, see you. Bye.
So we've got the so look at this. This is the Neptune, right? It just gives me Neptune vibes, JJ, and I fucking hate the Neptune. So yeah, it's not for me, man. And Bright Blue Comet's response to AXKs is for me, it's a Gerard Perregaux casquette. It's called the Gerard Perregaux casquette because we give value on this show, Gerard Perregaux.
I met Bright Blue Comet last week. Cool guy, very cool guy.
Gerard Perregaux casquette. Oh, JJ, what do you think of this? The casquette.
Ooh,
they can keep it.
Professors.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this. Reminds me of another watch. Bobby Legs has it, and a couple other guys they all bought it as a group thing. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember the name of it. It was like a Romain Germain or something like that. It's very similar to this.
I feel like this is the watch you get if you're going to be in the movie Men in Black. It just would go with it somehow. I don't know why.
Romain Jerome, right? That's the name. It's called the Moon DNA Spacecraft. If you look at that one, Romain Jerome.
Nah, man, we're gonna
go
down. We're not gonna go down that rabbit hole today. We only got 30 minutes before the main show. But I wanted to get back to Professor's comment around the originality. So this piece obviously had a bit of buzz in the watch collecting community, which was dubbed the Unicorn John Goldberger's piece that he auctioned off for charity. And so the whole story, Perez Scope does a pretty in-depth analysis on this story. So I just pulled up the article from Perez Scope. But it says Rolex Daytona 6265, the Unicorn Frankenstein plot. So this is the piece that John Goldberger had sold at auction, and there was some inconsistencies in terms of the pieces, photographs of the piece before it got restored. Now there was, I guess the auction house didn't disclose it being a restoration out the gate, and it got updated, I believe, before the auction. Bright Blue Comet says, yeah, it's a fascinating story. It's a scandal. So because pictures started emerging on Instagram around the unicorn in the past, and it had a different, dial. You can see here on the bezel's all the bezel, you can see here, this is kind of an original older picture. You can see here that the bezel is not in great shape, but then in the auction photo, the 55 is perfectly it's nice again, and obviously the dial layout's different and stuff like that. So it was quite the scandal because there was no discussion of it being restored, and John Goldberger didn't really want to comment about the piece. The bracelet is not it's not original to the watch. That was disclosed, but this watch sold for crazy money. And yeah, it was just a wild story where there's a lot of inconsistencies around whether, and I guess in the term here, it's whether, and the crown was another one. This was a big one here, where the crown in and of itself on the unicorn, they're showing that like this crown may not have even been Rolex itself. This may be, if you kind of look at the finishing of the crown, people are saying that the standard of that is not even potentially even a Rolex part. So this watch was originally highlighted on Hodinkee, where they talked with John Goldberger around the piece. But there's just a lot of inconsistencies, whether this is a quote unquote fake watch. So Professor, this kind of goes along that topic you were talking about of, is this a restored watch? Is it even restored with Rolex parts? John Goldberger claims that he did the restoration after obviously it came to light that the watch was restored, that he didn't or wasn't necessarily disclosed at the start of the auction, but eventually when it came out that he had hunted down OG original parts for the Daytona, which people are also questioning because this Daytona is in, I believe it's in white gold, if I'm not mistaken. Just look at gold. Yeah, so it is the unicorn, the white gold Daytona. So, people are questioning whether, where the heck are you going to find, parts for a white gold Daytona that are going to be period correct? Because that's another thing in vintage is whether you're finding a part that's not period correct or a period correct part. Generally speaking, if you get a period correct part, it can slide a bit. People let it slide, but you got to obviously disclose that it's not original and it's period correct. Where the hell is he even finding a period correct like white gold crown kind of a thing, right? So people really started questioning this. So I'll stop talking. That's the story. What do you guys think? Is this the minefield we're talking about in vintage or what?
Yeah, I'd say I'm not big on vintage. Like, I just want like something modern with the newest technology, newest machines making it, and it's fresh, so it's gonna last longer. It's not all beat up. So that's my preference. I just prefer to stay away from vintage.
No, I mean, the originality is an issue, right? That's why a lot of people opt for modern watches. And especially with something that could be hyped. Again, the question is, can you imagine a CEO of a company, his descendants, especially for somebody like Rolex, to be going off selling these watches, right? I mean, that's a big question mark. That's all I'm saying.
So this is a good picture, right? It describes the period correct 6263 in yellow gold, where you can see the crown. It has a completely different design. And you see this 6265 unicorn crown, which seems not finished to the same standard. If he's restoring this piece as he claims he is, like, is it being restored with an original part? Where the hell did he even find an original white gold crown from? Like, JJ, what are your thoughts? Is this watch cap or is this?
This is total cap. This is another example of how the vintage area of watches is a minefield, and you got to really be careful. I think these people want to pump it up to get obviously the biggest sale value they can. Honesty is secondary, which is a big issue. I think if you're more realistic with what you have and say you have an old watch, you're going to restore it to the best standards you can, and certain parts may not be original or even authentic. At least people know what they're getting. To get top dollar for a watch in pristine condition, it should be that way. It shouldn't have to be Frankenstein's back together. I think there needs to be more honesty in the resale of these watches.
The dial was also questioned in terms of the Sigma dial, where the dial layout of Goldberger's piece seemed to not be because Goldberger said, well, it's period correct. I sourced period correct. But I think even here in the article, they state that it's not necessarily period correct. The thing is, I'll read the article. The thing is, the dial chosen by Goldberger is not correct for the year of manufacture. It is furthermore questionable whether Daytona Sigma dials were already introduced at the time of production. From what I can see in my extensive database, the Daytona signal dials were introduced around the case number 3 million. So they're questioning whether even the dial was period correct. Dumbfuck says, "Tan, the money was for charity though." Yeah, this was also another part of the story is they claimed it was for charity, but there was never really a disclosure of like how much was given for charity. I'm not going to speculate. This is what this article is saying. So if you want to make your own kind of assumptions off of it, this article is on the website Periscope. I'll show it up here. Periscope Rolex Daytona 6265, the Unicorn Frankenstein plot. Very interesting story. If you guys like going down the rabbit hole, and if you're one of those guys who used to have a Playboy magazine and like reading the articles, like ArchieLuxury, this may be the right one for you. Professor, is this in line with what your premise was earlier around the minefield of vintage watches?
Yeah, completely. And I think JJ said the same, and others completely. I mean, it's a totally, it's a huge market, and of course, if you start placing these gray areas and question marks, that's a huge market that people have vested interests. But it is what it is, and has to be flagged.
I have up on the screen the famous Rolex Bao Dai, owned by, I believe, the last king or emperor.
King Farouk.
I think it was Vietnam. I could be mistaken.
I think this is King Farouk of Egypt.
No, it's not. It's not Egypt. The Bao Dai, that's their name, right? I think it's Bao Dai.
Bao Dai.
Vietnamese, yeah. Bao Dai is Vietnamese.
Okay.
And I got to cut out, Tan. I appreciate you having me on. Got to do a few things, but awesome show. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you, JJ. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I'll hop on Arches a little later. I just got to run out for a bit.
Cool. No worries, man. Appreciate it. So this is the Bao Dai. This is a Rolex that was owned by, I believe, the last emperor or king of Vietnam. And interesting story. Apparently, ArchieLuxury knows somebody who's actually held this watch. So if you guys are watching the show in about 20 minutes, Archie, you can ask Archie about this piece. But really, really interesting piece. And there's been a lot of talk in kind of watch YouTube around, will Rolex ever kind of go back to these complications on a lineup that's not the Cellini, basically. So, if you can kind of look at the design of this piece, it looks more Datejust-esque with the Jubilee bracelet, a oyster case, and here you see a day date as well as a moon phase on it, and just an interestingly complicated piece from Rolex that you just don't see in today's day and age. They don't really, outside of the Sky Dweller, are you really seeing these kind of date complications that go beyond just this regular day date or the Datejust. Professor, do you ever see Rolex ever coming back to this kind of a design?
Yeah, I think so.
Aiden, what about you?
Do I see them coming back to this design?
Or a type of watch like this, where it's like it's more of a sporty watch, but it has some complications that are beyond what the basic ones that Rolex kind of gives out.
I think eventually, yeah, Rolex could do that, yeah.
So the one complication I would say that Rolex, there's a few that Rolex doesn't necessarily produce, and one of them is a perpetual calendar. They make the annual calendar through the Sky Dweller, and I could see Rolex creating a perpetual calendar, high-end piece, probably in a sporty case, like the Sky Dweller. I could see them doing that. I don't really see them investing in creating a movement, like a perpetual calendar to put in a dress watch that they've historically struggled to sell anyways in the past. So if they were to do something like this, I think it would be in either a subline of the Sky Dweller and or a Sky Dweller that could be utilized in a perpetual calendar format as opposed to an annual calendar format. I think the annual calendar is, to me, guys, is one of the most usable complications out there. not having to really change the date until you get to the February-March transition is super useful. And it's a lot cheaper than the perpetual calendars out there. So I know, Professor, you're not a huge fan of the Sky Dweller, right? I don't think you like it that much, do you?
No, it's beautiful for what they have done. My only issue is that it's not for everyone. It's a thick watch, it's a bigger watch, and if it's not on a Jubilee, then the oyster looks big. It has to be for the right wrist.
Yeah,
Hayden,
yeah.
Hayden,
I
your thoughts on the Sky
absolutely
Dweller?
love the Sky Dweller. I think it's just like a date just but on steroids, kind of. And then with the Jubilee and the fluted bezel and all that, I think it just it really works. But I do have to head off here, so I just want to say thanks to Tan for letting me on. Thanks,
man.
Professor, JJ,
Thank
and
you,
all those in the chat. And I think Tan, turn the super chat button on. Let's turn it back
Yeah,
on.
I think they're gonna want it in 20 minutes. Archie's he's gonna be all over that. Me, I'm here for the conversation. I'm here for the watch talk, and that's what I get fulfillment out of. But yeah, if you guys want super chat, support Archie, please do.
I'm just poking fun at you guys. So hey, thanks. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys later.
Take care. Thanks.
See ya. Whole Milk says perpetual calendars are notoriously fickle. Yes, they are. Rolex would need a big redesign of the existing complication to get it to work for a sports watch. Yeah, and or they could just create the complication themselves. They can, work out a new movement. I would say that if they were to do a perpetual calendar, it would be definitely a very expensive piece on their part, probably come out in precious metal, probably using a design maybe not similar to this, but an oyster case, either an oyster bracelet or maybe a Jubilee bracelet, who knows. But definitely that could be something that they do. But the real question is that do they have to, right? They don't need to add a new lineup. That's kind of what I'm telling everybody is we think about it a lot in the side of the collector. What would we want? Oh, we'd want a world time, or we'd want a perpetual calendar, or we'd want, a Hulk no date Submariner, right? That's what we want. But does Rolex need to do that? As a business, should they, can they invest their dollars elsewhere that are going to get probably less risk than introducing a completely new lineup? Like, Professor, what do you think, right? Like, do you think they'd even think about something like this because they don't really necessarily need to do something like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's look, they can continue doing what they're doing. They still make a lot of money, and as the data shows, collectively, the top 5 manufacturers have the revenue of just altogether of Rolex. So collectively, the top 5 after Rolex are Rolex.
Yeah.
So Rolex can keep on doing what they're doing, and they'll still make a lot of money. But I think eventually, they could get into this, like the Sky Dweller, which was never thought that Rolex will be involved because, again, it's a 1 or 2 trick pony company. I criticize AP for being a 1 trick pony, but Rolex just, does the sub and the GMT, and after that, it's all the same. But they ended up doing the Sky Dweller, and that was a huge advancement. And of course, they did the Yacht-Master, but it's a completely useless complication. So they could go back and revamp this, and it will be, let's say, the big announcement for them, because people do criticize them for being 1 trick or 2 trick pony thing, right? I mean, the most complicated, besides the Sky Dweller and the Yacht-Master II, massively, the rest of the line massively sells on 1 or 2 complications, the date or the GMT. So I think they could very well go and show the world that they can do it, and still make a lot of money, and it will be a very cost-efficient watch compared to many of its peers. I mean, this watch could be retailing for the steel one. I could easily see it at around 25 to 28,000 for the steel, and then from there on, for the precious metal, whatever the price tag will be. But it's something very feasible. I mean, it's not an impossible feat for somebody like Rolex.
So this is the Rolex Padaloni, which I think Dumpfuck was asking about. Dumpfuck, whatever. Apologies if I mispronounced it. I think I got the gist of it. This was a triple date. They have and there's other, you can see kind of this in other iterations here, the triple calendar, not on a bracelet, but on a strap. And obviously they've been beaten up over the years, but this is a nice photo. And to me, this is probably, if they were to ever do something like this again, or if they were trying to save the Cellini line, this would be, this would be the way they do it, right? They axe this whole, the Cellini needs to be on a strap and this dress watch-ish look, or classical dress watch look, versus moving into a more Rolex DNA design, where you see here the Jubilee bracelet, the oyster case, a more familiar design, where they then add on top the moon phase or the triple calendar or the annual calendar or the perpetual calendar. This is how I see them saving the Cellini line. I don't see them continuing to, well, they probably will continue to go wherever the heck the way they want to go. But if this was me, I would say, hey, look, guys, we've got this great DNA that everybody loves. Why don't we go and just expand on it and actually get something like this in the hands of the collectors, right?
I think you make a very good point, Tan. They need to, however, place it on a bracelet. The Cellini, I think, is pretty dead on a leather strap.
Yeah, like I don't think they're, the buyers out there that are looking for, a Rolex are necessarily going to gravitate to a leather strap, whereas the buyers looking for a Patek or for a Lange, or in those types of brands, even a VC, don't mind obviously going traditional. They're probably looking for that. So if I'm Rolex and I'm trying to sell a Rolex watch, I want it to have Rolex DNA, and the Cellini just doesn't. And this is a historical line that and again, wasn't a big seller for them either, guys. Really was not, because Rolex at the time was known for tool watches, right? They weren't a dress watch or a high complication, high horology company. And so therefore, the buyers weren't necessarily going to purchase a Rolex if they wanted a piece like that. They would go to Patek, Vacheron, AP, other manufacturers that produce these as their bread and butter. Rolexes were tool watches, so people would go to Rolex to purchase their Submariners, their GMTs, sometimes even Daytonas. They weren't very popular back in the day, but that's what they would go. They wouldn't necessarily go for these dressy pieces. But that is kind of my take on it. Like, I think if they want to save the Cellini line, this is the way to go about it, is to do this. Look, Professor, there's a few lines that I think need to be saved, right? Like, you got the Milgauss, I think needs a big refresh. It's, you've got the Metas movements that are way more amagnetic than the Milgauss is.
That's right. I think that line will be discontinued. I think Milgauss is gonna go either into a new case or discontinued, and then wait for 2-3 years, and then place it in the case of the Air King with a protective crown, and make it more robust in terms of its protection, or outright cancel it, and that's it. And I think they need to do something about, and I think this is true because the production, from the delivery side on the AD, they get very few pieces, which means that they're winding down very quickly. And the same for the Yacht-Master II. Now, of course, they might not cancel both of them in the same year, but they could very well do these two cancellations, one this year, one next year.
So Dumpfuck says, he brings up a good piece here. Check out the Kili version triple date chronograph. So I have it up on the screen. And the interesting thing, professors, earlier before you hopped on, Mr. Zoso was saying, I think Rolex could do a GMT chronograph. like merge or do a piece that merges the lines. And I kind of questioned whether that would ever happen, because I'm like, you have two very successful lines, right? You got
Yeah.
GMT buyers and you got chronograph buyers. So why would Rolex go and probably cannibalize any of those lineups? Because why would you not want both complications if you can get it, right? So I don't think that they would necessarily
No,
bark down that tree,
exactly.
but this tree they may bark down, or bark up.
I don't think they will do that. I agree with you. Remember, these iterations were projects done in the past, and there was a divergence at some point. And I don't think they'll go back to the old system of having a multiple chronometer with a GMT function, because it will basically challenge the GMT line. Already there is a Submariner challenge. The GMT has overtaken the Submariner, and that needs to be shaken a bit, the Submariner line. And of course, everybody's expecting for the 70th anniversary. I don't know if they do every 10 years an anniversary model, so it could be that the market anticipates and nothing gets delivered. But the Submariner line needs to be revamped in the sense of getting more demand. And because now the demand goes into the GMTs and the Daytona, and that's not good enough, as you know. The Cermet is okay, but it's not what was aspired, and the Sub is okay, but compared to the GMT, there is a huge hype in the GMT. And you were saying what are you going to get? How you're going to get
Zoso was saying that it would be a complicated piece that includes the GMT with the chronograph.
Yeah, but then what do they do with the GMT?
Well, that's exactly what I said. I said, like, look, really ask the why. Like, why would Rolex do that? Now, this piece, for example, that Dumpfuck that asked me to put up, I understand the why here, because this piece was released at a different time when complicated pieces, complicated dress pieces were still very popular. So there was a market for it. Obviously, Patek Philippe, AP, NVC, all were in this, and AP at the time was probably, this is pre Royal Oak. So AP is a manufacturer of ultra thin dress watches alongside complicated watches. So Rolex absolutely had a market for it. Whereas today, I really don't think that market is lucrative enough for Rolex to necessarily want to invest. Like I said, they have the Cellini line. They still have some DNA that's associated to this era in it, but like I just don't see them a big return coming in with putting a huge amount of investment in this. They can get to legendary status through their tool watches. They don't need to go down this route. So that's why I would challenge whether that would ever happen.
Yeah, I think it breaks the current business model and the manufacturing processes. I mean, again, Rolex is not in the business of creating extremely high complications. They're in the business of producing solid watches for a very fair price, over hundreds of thousands of pieces. And that's the beauty of the brand.
Yes, you have here an anti-magnetic triple day chronograph, like a pretty, I'd say arguably pretty decently complicated piece from Rolex in their DNA, right? You got an oyster case, you got an oyster bracelet, very cool looking watch actually. And if I were to revamp the Milgauss line, if I was looking to make the Milgauss fresh again, you'd have to update the Milgauss's anti-magnetism comparative to the Meadows movements, because you can literally get a more anti-magnetic watch. Not that even matters, but from a regular Speedmaster than you can get in the Milgauss today, right? So like, what is the real point of the Milgauss? What is the point of Mr. GMT is what I'm asking here of the Milgauss, number one. Number two, like the design is polarizing. It always was, you know, and I'll pull up
I agree.
I'll pull up the OG. Go ahead.
I agree.
I'll pull up the OG Milgauss. This is the Rolex 6541. This is the OG here. You got a nice picture of Albert Einstein there as well. So they always had this, like, you know, lightning hand. Bit of a different design when it first came out. You know, obviously the red triangle here. You got a big crown, no crown guards, and you have a different type of bezel here, comparative to, you know, kind of what you're seeing today. And you know, textured dial, very, very different than what you see today. But I think this, yeah, Mr. GNT is listening. He says exactly. But yeah, like, you know, for the Milgauss, if they were ever to do, you know, a piece that like we were just seeing here on the screen, I don't know if I still have it here, but you know, a piece like this, or, you know, like we were looking at the Kili chronograph, Kini Triple J chronograph, and I'll pull this one back up. A piece like this, like I could see this somehow fitting into the Milgauss line as they completely redesign it or revamp it, because I think that watch is just not relevant in any shape or form outside of people just loving the aesthetic of the piece. I just don't see it being relevant at all.
Yeah, I don't think that, you know, Rolex doesn't go that back. And again, it will do a lot of damage in the way it sees the brand. People look at this as a collector's development kind of thing. From a collector's perspective, it makes a lot of sense. But it doesn't make any sense from a business perspective. So
Dumpfuck is actually right. Sorry, go ahead.
Pardon? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say his comment here is right. The OG chronograph led the charge for the design DNA, which is the grandpappy of the Submariner. So prior to becoming the Submariner, it was called the chronograph, which is different than what you may think of what a chronograph looks like today. But this design is quite classic. You can obviously see the aesthetic being very similar to the Submariner, because that is where the Submariner came from. But this was the thing, Professor, was Rolex understood its DNA and created watches like we saw with these Kili pieces and other ones, where they were using their DNA, whether it's the oyster case, the oyster bracelet, and then they were slapping on these complications. And I think that actually was probably not a bad idea, as they're chasing the dress watch phase right now. And the Cellini, I think, is just the wrong idea. I think they missed the point.
Yeah, you don't look. The Cellini has lost its direction, but also remember that the market has lost its direction, because when people say, "Oh, I'm wearing a dress watch," there is no such a thing as a dress watch anymore. I mean, it's said only by people who are of a certain age. The young folk don't care if it's a dress watch or a no dress watch. They go in and wear everything and nothing. You know, they wear an iWatch, an Apple Watch, and that's a dress watch, or they wear an Explorer 2, and that's a dress watch, or they wear a Cellini, and that's a dress watch. But our understanding of what is a dress watch has changed. Whereas 30, 40 years ago, yes, they did have a dress watch, but it's no longer the case. And the Cellini is of that era of the dress watch. And, you know, believe it or not, they do have demand for the watch. I mean, it's not popular, but it's there. At some point, we'll need to deal with it, because, again, there is no such thing as a dress watch. I often hear, you guys talking about the dress watch, but there is no such thing as the dress watch.
I agree. I think we just use the term the dress watch just to be simple, and just give people an idea of what we're speaking about. But I agree. I don't believe that the term dress watch, and Ducky
your
says,
AP is a beautiful dress watch. You can wear it anytime with a tuxedo, and go to a wonderful cocktail or banquet, you don't need to have a Cellini or a, Calatrava to wear your tuxedo. Whereas 40 years ago, you had to wear a leather strap, sorry, in
Leather
order to
strip,
go
yeah.
to that banquet, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like Ducky's saying, dress watch should not have a dive bezel, right? That is, you know, some people, would argue that the Submariner is not a dress watch, or and others, like even Rolex themselves, have stated that they have an ad that they run on the Submariner, an ancient ad. Let me see if I can find it actually.
I mean, even James Bond used to have a tuxedo and wear the Rolex.
Yeah, the Bond reference is one thing, but here's the Rolex ad. Saying we invented the Submariner to work perfectly 660 feet under the sea. It seems to work pretty well at every level, and you're showing here, looking like a black tie type of event, where the individual is wearing a dive watch, holding a drink, and just kind of
Exactly.
basically stating the fact that Rolex themselves, they were really accepting of the fact that the dress watch was the case. So Archie's actually live here, guys. So I'm going to send this crew over to the ArchieLuxury channel, which is the same channel as this one, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. So thank you again, Professor, and for those, we'll be back on the main show with Archie.
All right.